Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're going to talk about something today that affects a lot of us, if not all of us at one point in our lives, and it can hold us back, put doubt in our minds. It's very challenging. I'm talking about imposter syndrome. Sounds pretty serious, can be. And she's somebody that helps people with it all the time as a licensed clinical psychologist and also a life coach. She blends both of those to help you navigate a lot of stuff, including imposter syndrome. And she's with us today. It's Dr. Feeby on the program. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing so well. It's so beautiful out here in California. It's really nice to meet you, and I hope you guys are doing well. I love doing these podcasts with you because it just I get in touch with what's going on in New York, and also get to get some content out there that's relevant, especially post-COVID.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And this whole imposter syndrome thing is, I have friends that deal with it.
Yeah.
I have one. Well, you know what? Before I even get into it, what is it? Let's explain it for everybody.
So pretty much imposter syndrome is when you feel that you are imposter in what you actually teach or work in, and you feel like, all right, you're not good enough. And if someone found out how inadequate you are, that they wouldn't honor you, or that you would be embarrassed by it. So and that is very far away from the truth. The reason I got into thinking about imposter syndrome, I have 6 degrees and 4 certificates, and I'm sitting in this NLP class, and I'm like going, I don't know if I'm smart enough. And I'm like, this is imposter syndrome. Like, at what point does that person become enough? And it is not based on reality, and it holds us back from being all we can be. It doesn't allow us to show up with our abilities, because we're always in our minds thinking, I didn't do that well, or I didn't do that good enough. If people found out how anxious I am, or how I didn't present as good as I wanted to, they would not respect the content that I'm sending out. So in a lot of ways, people just feel like they're a fake.
Do you find that most people with imposter syndrome really know what they're doing? They've got it together, but it's just the doubt or the self-doubt that they have, are limiting beliefs. Right.
Absolutely. And I think there is a with women, especially, this has been such a small time where they've been showing up in these big professional places, in more than just, secretarial and nursing and teaching. And so they're in these big executive jobs, and owners and entrepreneurs. And there's a lot of women out there that are still kind of like, all right, maybe being an entrepreneur, I'm being an imposter doing that. Like, maybe I'm not good enough. And despite having all of the success, it's not really based on facts.
I'm dealing with a friend, helping a friend who started a job a couple of months ago, and she's done the job before. She took some time off, some personal reasons, got back in maybe almost 2 years, year and a half after taking a break. And things are a little bit different in terms of this company, how they do things. So she doesn't feel that she can hit the mark. There's quotas. I'm like, you're doing great for what they gave you. Not great training. They even got to the point where they said, all right, probation period is over. If you have a question about something, don't ask. They literally said that.
Wow.
Company says
such that. What a setup. Right? Because now she's just left to her own thoughts about her value and her accomplishments.
Yeah. And the funny thing is,
that's a scary place sometimes.
And then she has Monday, they're going to give me an evaluation. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do here? Then they sent out an email with a number of errors that were made, and she was freaking out over it. I'm like, don't worry about it. You got it.
Right.
You know. Right. And it turns out, after having the meeting and her explaining her concerns, they said, you know what? You're doing better than most people that have been here for a year. What are you worried about? You're too hard on yourself.
Yes. Absolutely.
Like you said,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's not usually what it is. You know
Right.
what
It's
you're
like the
doing.
anorexia of accomplishments. You always think that you're not, good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not. However, everything that you have for the job that you went to is in you. You knew that when you applied for the job, you knew that when you got accepted to the job, you knew that
Sure.
when you graduated college. Like it's all in there. It's a matter of just not falling. I mean, you see everything is so fantasized online, and like that's what a real doctor should look like. They should have their hair done, and you're like, it's Grey's Anatomy. That's not how a real doctor is.
Yeah, right. So you're in that situation. You're feeling that you don't have what it takes to do this job. You feel that you're a phony, you know?
Yep.
How do you change that?
All right. Well, first of all, you got to figure out where it's coming from. So recognize first, I have imposter syndrome. I am struggling with this. There are parts of what I'm doing that I don't feel good enough about. Then I want you to recognize what is the specific places where you are dealing with your own self-doubt. Is it in, creating income? Is it in your timeline? Is it in your procrastination? Because that tells you some information about where you might be feeling insecure about like your performance.
Hmm.
The second part to that equation is it's important that we look at what we're challenged by, but the second part is that we forget often to look at the things that we do really good. And when you have, I used this analogy with someone. When you have a cup and it has holes all over it, and you keep trying to fill it up, and you go, I can't even get to the cup half full, and I'm like, stop poking holes in it.
Hmm. And we beat on
Yes,
ourselves all the time. And,
right. And we don't look at the things that we actually have, our resources that are in us, that if there are, we have online resources, we have mentors, we have coaches, we have access to, now we have access to more resources than we've ever had. So if there are challenges, then I'm challenged by them versus I can't do it. And then figuring out what are the resources that I would require in order to bring out the best version of me, my strength, not just focus on the weaknesses or the challenges.
How do you gain confidence? I think that's a big
Oh
challenge for a lot of
my.
us.
Okay, so I at one point I had done this podcast on what the word confidence means, and it comes from Latin word confide, which means is to tell truth. And the way that we kind of have changed the idea of confidence, it's like, oh, I'm so arrogant, I know what I'm doing, everything comes easy. That's actually not the true nature of the word confidence. The word confidence comes from confide. Being able to be confident even in the things that you're challenged with is so important. So being able to be honest, hey, these are my super strengths, this is what I do really well, this is what I struggle with, and I'm going to have to delegate. That's how you gain confidence, because the outcome changes. You create achievable outcomes when you're being more honest. And when you're being more honest, you can figure out where my blind spots are and use resources for that.
You could also look at confidence if you have imposter syndrome as con.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
like you're conning people, but you're really not.
No.
We actually have instant feedback coming in, instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. If you have a question. Selena is in Fort Worth, Texas. She says, thank you for your talk today. Can someone have imposter syndrome when it relates to a relationship? I'm with someone
Absolutely.
who never expresses their feelings. I don't think they're ready for a deeper relationship. but they're not telling me that.
Okay.
Hmm.
So there's a couple of different ones. I mean, I think how imposter syndrome shows up in relationships is when you think that the person you're with is above your pay grade. Like, oh, if they find out that like I struggle with this mental health,
Hmm.
or if they find out that I don't wake up looking like this, or if I get older and I don't look like the way that I am right now, like, and then in being that way and creating those limiting beliefs, people start acting out like they might act more jealous, they might push the other person away. It's like, I'll reject you before you reject me because I feel like I'm
Inferior.
not good enough. Exactly.
Yeah.
And instead of having these conversations about like, hey, where do you see my strengths? Where do you see my challenges? Where do you see your strengths? Where do you see your challenges? We walk, we don't talk about the truthful things. And therefore, I don't know if that guy is ready for the relationship or not. I don't know if he has, however, it is time for communication and open dialogue about where he feels he's at and where you feel you're at.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting what you said, that it's different in relationships because your true feelings come out, or at least
Yep. You're raw.
feelings come out. Yeah, it gets kind of raw.
Right.
So what you
Yeah.
just said, so impactful. If somebody feels that they're not as good as the other person, they're going to start throwing things out like jealousy, or
Yep.
just they're going to be coming up with something.
Sabotage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Just like they do in jobs. People will sabotage their jobs too if they think they're being overpaid. Like they will start sabotaging, or what they'll do is they'll actually take on more work. And when they're taking on more work so they can be worthy of that pay grade,
Mm,
they now are doing two jobs and they're going to do two jobs half-ass.
yeah. And then
And so
complain.
they
Then
sabotage.
complain.
Yeah, yeah, yep, exactly.
Gosh,
Exactly.
working
And
so
then
hard. I don't know if I can pull this off. Like they're just
mhm,
they're throwing stuff at me left and right.
left and right.
I'm
Yep.
doing the best I can. Uh,
Mhm.
Meaning I don't think I can do the job half the job,
Right.
which is it's
And it's
probably all untrue.
and it's so interesting. Sometimes if you just mess with an imposter syndrome person where you actually go in the other direction, you're like, maybe you don't know what you're doing. And they're like, I should know what I'm doing. I mean, I went to school for this. And you're like, oh, did you go to the right school? And they'll actually start. And I'm like, okay, so somewhere in there, you have this accurate dialogue. Why is this not the primary dialogue that comes when you go to work versus the, oh my God, I walked in 2 minutes late. I don't even know if what I offer is valuable enough. It's kind of like, hey, if you push back on the imposter syndrome, they start reevaluating that limiting belief. And when they start reevaluating that limiting belief, it brings some stuff up like, okay, so what is this really about?
Hmm.
And how do you want to approach it? Is this more of like hey, I gotta pump myself up in the morning? Is this like if I slap a little bit more lipstick, are you gonna feel more confident? Like what is the variable that's creating that self-doubt?
Is that something that you get to the root of when you work with somebody?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because and I've talked to Jill about this, is in this country we teach our children in the opposite way that a lot of different countries do. So if you go to different countries, they start off with human being, human doing, and then human having. However, in this country, we start off with human having, human doing, and then human being. A lot of people actually don't get to even being a human being because it becomes like a luxury. Like, oh, well, one day when I have enough time and enough money, I'm just going to sit down and meditate. Like, as if meditation was, like something that it's for the rich and the privileged. Whereas, whereas in a lot of different countries, they start off with, okay, what are you being? How are you contributing to your culture? How are you contributing to your community? and then you do, and then you have. But we're bringing all of the best and the mostest to these babies at such a young age. And there is that space of like, okay, past all of the having, how do you know you're being? And a lot of people don't know how to be good enough because they don't finish the sentence. Like, okay, I'm not good enough too. They're like, and I'll have people like go, what do you mean, doc? And I'm like, oh, wait, are we operating on your brain? Because I thought I was just saying I'm not good enough to operate on your brain. I didn't go to school for that. And they'll be like, no, in general. I'm like, you gotta finish the sentence. You're in general as an angel, as a unicorn, as a high top executive. And when you don't finish that sentence, your brain just goes, I'm not good enough, therefore I cannot challenge myself because I don't have the resources to win.
I never thought of it that way with other cultures.
Yeah.
Because it's, they're teaching their young how to be human, how to be a person, how to be a great person.
Right.
Oh, by the way, and
Play
then go to
outside.
school and learn, a trade or something, whatever, become a doctor. We're the other way around. Do all of that. Now be a person.
Yep. Yeah. And I know, like, and you just see all these people like they're like, oh, I'm so rich now. And then, now I'm going on yoga retreats and meditation retreats and doing some volunteer work. And you're like, okay, all right, we do have this very differently.
Wow.
And so when we talk about I'm not being good enough, and a lot of us haven't even been being, what we're saying is like, I don't believe I am doing good enough. And that's part of the imposter syndrome.
This goes even layers deeper than I thought, because it's not just about somebody feeling that they can't do a job. It's somebody feeling that they can't do life in some regards because they weren't given the skills.
Exactly. And they weren't taught the skills because we did not put a priority on teaching them skills.
Yeah. Wow. So at this point, like, what do you do? Like, we're talking about some of these things. How about when somebody makes a mistake? You're going to make a mistake at work, but if you have imposter syndrome, you probably beat on yourself so much.
Right. Or you hide it and just try to fix it without asking for help. So that's one way people do it. The other way is, people will start like showing up late to work, calling off days, missing time with colleagues, kind of starting to separate themselves. So the best thing is like to say, my poopy smells. Like even babies don't like to stay in their own poopies. So we gotta just be able to say, okay, this is not my best strength. People think that failure means that you just fall on the ground, but really failure is feedback, so you can know how to get back up and try again. So failure is something that we need. We needed when we were babies to walk, to run. And all of a sudden we're saying, you cannot fail. That is not okay. Like, who said? That's literally how we get better at anything, is by failing. So accepting that the process has failures, there will be things that you're going to do that are new and challenging to you, that it doesn't mean you're an imposter. You're just a baby in it. And you're figuring it out. And once you figure it out, you can integrate it with these different strengths that you have. The other part is just find a good support system, because you want friends around you that don't tell you that your poopy smells great. Because those are not the friends that are going to elevate or level you up. Those are the kind of friends that are going to keep you in your poopy. And I know I'm using the word poopy. I work with a lot of military and I use other words.
Yep. We got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you want people to light your stuff up so that you can elevate, you can grow out of that imposter. And when you have those chances to actually show off what you are capable of doing, you can feel more confident because you can be more honest about, like, I know I can do this. I'm a badass. Like this stuff is new and I'm figuring it out. And it's the same concepts in a new program, but like my brain can be wired to figure this out quickly.
If you
And
have that confidence, if you found that sweet
yes,
spot where,
you
like I've
you have to
learned
clean out the poopy first.
in
Yeah.
my journey, kind of learned that where
Yeah.
um one day I turned around and I said, wow, something you kind of do well is when stuff pops up right away, like I can come up with a plan and then pivot quickly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's kind of
Problem
exciting,
solving, rewiring. You're the
right?
Siri recalculating.
Yeah, yeah. Life or work or whatever it might be. I'm a geek when it comes to tech stuff. So when something goes
Yeah.
wrong, give me 5 seconds. I'm going to find a way around it. We're going to get it done.
Right.
But it's having that confidence to know that, yeah, I got that. And it's not like
Right.
you're full of yourself. It's just
No,
you know what your capabilities are.
you're being honest.
Yeah.
If you're being okay, so if you're being honest about the things that you suck at, but you're not being honest about the things you're good at, like that's not being full of yourself. Again, that is just you're giving yourself credit where credit is due. If you're an employee and you told that person, like, good job for getting that report to me in like 3 days, I didn't expect it for a couple more days. You can't do that for yourself. Like, are you filling them up or are you just acknowledging them? Like you're acknowledging their hard work. You're not full of yourself. You're caring for yourself for the
Hmm.
things that you've done correctly.
But we feel guilt
Uh,
in the same
yeah,
reason why
that's a limiting belief.
there
That's
it
a
is.
limiting belief.
There it
Yep,
is.
yep,
Same reason
yep, yep.
why, so many of us don't take time for self-care because we feel we should be doing other stuff and we're not worthy of that. I got to keep
Right.
working or whatever. I got to take care of my family. I can't take time for myself,
Right.
but
Oh, I
I'm
can't take
missing
that
it.
money away from them. When I talked about that with Jill a couple of weeks ago about how we create these glass ceilings for our healing, and we don't push past them because then we would have to say things about ourselves that are positive, like I was created to be beautiful and show up and bold and
Hmm.
loving, and if I'm taking these opportunities, that does not mean I'm being selfish. The word selfish has the word ish in it, means it's a little bit of yourself. Selfless has no part of yourself, and self-indulgent is only about yourself. So if you're being selfish, I say go for it. It's just a little ish. So it's a little bit of the self
Yep.
ishing.
Which is all
Yeah,
good.
take it on. Yes. And this is how we create limitations, is by using these words as weapons. We've used the word selfish is one of the biggest weaponized words. It really is just about making sure that you're part of the equation. Yourself is part of the equation.
What about the word ego? Got such a
Yeah.
bad rap.
Oh my
Nothing
gosh,
wrong with
right?
having an ego,
No, and
right?
it's called healthy ego or non-healthy ego.
Right. But we
Right?
all have
Yeah,
an ego. We need to realize
exactly.
it exists. Um,
Right.
Phoebe, we're just about out of time.
Oh
And
yes, yes.
if somebody's dealing with these beliefs, these obstacles in their life, they feel that they don't match up or meet up to what they're doing in terms of their job, relationships. This is stuff that's in your wheelhouse. You help people with this all the time, right?
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. I enjoy every moment of it. Yep. And I do it as a licensed clinical psychologist. I do it working with military and equine assisted psychotherapy. And I do it in my coaching business. And so we just really get down to identifying what your limiting beliefs, mess all those up, and recreate a new board, clean up board, and recreate a board that honors you showing up to be the person that you want to be and have the things that you want to have. and do the things that you want to do.
Quick question. Last one.
Yeah.
Curious. Have you worked with people who felt they weren't good enough in their jobs and turned it around where they're now thriving at their jobs?
Yes. I've worked with plenty of them.
Interesting.
Because yes, again, because it goes back to like limiting beliefs, figuring out where their poopy is, getting them the support. And once that puzzle is complete and they can fully see it, their brain is like on fire.
Wow.
On fire. I'm actually having a business meeting with someone right now and working through some limiting beliefs. And for her business, and she had a barn with 90 horses, and it's a good thriving business. It's just that there's little tweaks that could be done that could make it easier and a little bit more streamlined for her.
That's got to make somebody feel so good, and you at the same time knowing that you're helping.
Yeah.
How do we find you?
All right. Best way to reach me is 760-492-5656. I'm going to tell you, like, I'm not the biggest tech savvy in regards to website and stuff. So if you go on my website, it's truenorthpsychservices.inc.com. But the best way to really reach me, it's by phone at 760-492-5656.
Great talking with you today. Such an important topic that you don't hear enough about, and it's so important. And we all deal with it in some aspect in our lives.
Right. Yep. Career, family, spirituality, all of that. Like, you have people going to church and being like, oh God, I'm not a good Christian because, and you're like, all right, imposter syndrome. Let's clean up some beliefs here.
Or maybe you're dealing with somebody that has it, or you suspect, and you're not really sure how to help them or navigate through that. So
right.
760-492-5656. Dr. Feeby, great having you on today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, Steve. Thank you.
Here. All right. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.